Hi everyone, I'm your host, Arlen Schumer, and welcome to one of my pop culture presentations. Get ready to be both educated and entertained, what I call edutainment. And when you're done, please be sure to click the subscribe or follow button on your platform screen to be notified of all of my upcoming pop culture presentations.
Good evening. Certain NBC executives feel it would be a little unkind to present this show without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold a show featuring David Letterman, a man of science who sought to create a show after his own image without reckoning upon God. It's one of the strangest tales ever told. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you don't care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to, well, we've warned you.
One of the most exciting cities in the tri-state area, it's Late Night with David Letterman. Tonight's guests are Bill Murray, Don Mr. Wizard Herbert, also a tour of the set, a special late night report on the shame of the city, and the Rainbow Grill Dancing Girls.
A man who shouldn't be up this late, David Letterman!
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's very kind of you, and welcome to our show. It's late night, and I guess you know spring is just around the corner in New York City when the peacock girls start to molt. It's not unlike the Swallows returning to Capistrano. It's a festivity here every year in New York. Welcome to the show. You folks are apparently a bright group, bright enough at least to read the applause sign, and I certainly appreciate that. I'm very excited about this new show, and it's a big 3 or 4 days for NBC. Let's see. They of course had World War III last night, starting on and then Saturday night Eric Estrada was singing, and tonight this extravaganza. But the whole thing was kind of tainted. I believe it was Friday evening. An NBC executive on his way home was arrested at Grand Central Station. His pride was showing, so they held him. We have a wonderful show for you folks this evening. Comedian Bill Murray will be joining us a little bit later. A guy who has been a longtime favorite of mine, you know him as Mr. Wizard, Don Herbert will be joining us. And if that wasn't enough, we are going to be right back. It's a brand new show a brand new set, a wonderful facility, and we're going to take you folks on a tour of this studio, this set, after you take a look at this. Thank you for being here, folks. What would you like to see on late night television?
Various ways of joining metal.
Okay.
Something about how to join metal.
I would like to see the metal is joined.
Oh, I wish there was a show that had information on how metal is joined.
And that, folks, was the first bumper of the very first David Letterman show, February 1st, 1982. I remember watching it. This was actually another of the first bumpers, as they're called, the images you see when the show goes to a commercial and returns. And that's actually the real wall at the East Village, 14th Street and Union Square in New York City. I was actually living in East Village at the time. I might remember that wall if they left those posters up that they put up. And the graphic with David Letterman on the right was added later on the photograph. Now, how would I know this information? Well, I got it off of this double-page spread in a beautiful new book. Look at the copy on the left. Union Square Wall was shot on the first bumper shoot and appeared on the first episode of Late Night, February 1st, 82. The wall no longer exists, but it's at the corner of 14th and Broadway. Notice other postings from Miles Davis of the Beacon, the Manhattans and the Stylistics of the Beacon, Gang of Four at Roseland, and world-famous hypnotist Robert Halpern. The Letterman posters were pre-printed and posted on the actual Union Square Wall with a staple gun through a poster of With David Letterman is applied to the master print with glue. Those are, of course, the words of the photographer who put this beautiful coffee table book together that came out in the same timing as the debut of the show earlier this year on February 1st, 1982. Marc Karzen, the photographer, seen here holding the very jacket that he designed with the Late Night logo. There's Marc Karzen, folks, current day, and 40 years or so ago when he was shooting bumpers for the David Letterman show. In fact, I'll let Marc introduce himself.
My name is Marc Karzen, and during Late Night with David Letterman, I shot the bumpers, which were the images that went before and after commercials. I had worked with Bob Pook, who was the graphic art director on Saturday Night Live. Pook and I got together and started talking about this idea of having bumpers for the show. The idea was to integrate the title into natural New York situations. And that's how it started. Ed Hall was hired as the graphics coordinator, and we were the team. So Pook, Ed, and I would get together, come up with a shot list. Sometimes we would show up to a location with some props. Sometimes we would place a prop into the shot, and sometimes we would completely fabricate. And sometimes it was a combo. This is the Late Night jacket, and you can see that Late Night is on the jacket, but With David Letterman is painted on by hand. Ed would present the final bumpers to Dave himself personally, and he had final approval of what went on the air. The most famous reject was a viewer sent in a Rubik's Cube that they made. And so we did a Rubik's Cube bumper, and Dave rejected it just because he hated Rubik's Cubes. As we got momentum in shooting these things and the show became super hot, We found that we could call almost any location and get in. So we went to Madison Square Garden. We got, permits to shoot at Grand Central Station. We got full access at Yankee Stadium. And that's where things really became fun for us. We would get fan mail. Fans would ask for, how could they buy prints, and was there a book? The whole idea of a book has been brewing for a very, very, very long time. Here's the book with foreword by David Letterman.
And there it is in a nice shot of the book cover with David Letterman's spread. And here's another shot, and you can see how Marc laid out the book and how these bumpers were created. As you saw in that nice little promo video Marc put together, Bob Pook was technically the art director, and there's Marc credited still photographer. And we'll talk about the graphic artist later. You can see in that low-res image the original Letterman band, Paul Schaefer on the left, and that's Will Lee on bass, I believe. And here's how Marc and Bob, along with Ed Hall, who you saw in that promo video, there's his name, Ed, E-D-D. But you can see how Marc would put these shot lists together. So a lot of work went into these things. They look deceptively simple, of course, but like anything creative, entails a lot of due diligent organizational production work. And there's Marc with Ed Hall from that group photograph you saw on the video. And so Marc would go out and shoot these things with Ed and others and come back with contact sheets that looked like this. And you can see the grease pencil markings when a photographer chooses the 1 out of 36 that will make the cut. Of course, let's sharpen that up a bit. Yes, that's how it looks close up. I love the look of grease pencil. And as we hone in on the image that would become the final bumper as seen in a double-page spread in Marc's book. So you can see some of these others in these nicely laid out spreads. There's one with Paul Schaefer. Twinkies. Oh, when I was a kid, Twinkies were like manna from heaven. I remember my 6th grade teacher used them in the cupboard for the winner of the spelling bee. And of course, I won the spelling bee all the time. I hope you're also being able to read Marc's text. I don't know if I have to read all of them out loud, but there are gems hidden in their simple sentences. But yeah, you can see the feel of the book. Candy Carell's makeup kit in her makeup room, where many writers watch the show and listen for laughs just down the hallway from the stage. That's, of course, the right-hand image. But on the left is that Late Night with David Letterman logo, based on the baseball design that Marc came up with that adorns the cover of the book. And inside, it was used for multiple shoots. I believe that's Bob Pook on the right. Is that Ed Hall in the center and Bill Shortridge on the left? Also seen on t-shirts, on objects both large and small. That Late Night logo really worked everywhere on everything. I really like the beauty and design of this one. It's real classic American. I mean, that says rock and roll, and that's what Dave's show was, really. It was rock and roll brought to late night television, and it changed it forever. This is a real beautiful shot. I like the way Marc and company did that one. And as Marc mentioned in that video, he's been making prints and having them framed. I believe this is in his studio, I'm assuming, and you can see some of the bumpers we've seen already and some others. He's been having exhibits for last couple of years, I think. but culminating in this 40th anniversary. There's another grouping, again, of some you've seen already and some we may have not. Here's a nice exhibit wall that Marc put together with, I like the glass case of various memorabilia, prints, all the things that went into the making of these bumpers. And there's a nice group shot, Marc, on the bottom right. There's Ed Hall in the kind of center left, third in from the left in the back row. And I believe that's original producer Robert Morton, I believe, sitting in the center. But we'll talk about this photograph later. And there's a nice close-up of our hero photographer. And a real, pride and joy after, 40 years and the show being such an icon of pop culture. Marc, of course, gives credit to everybody in the book. And there I am as the second graphic designer, Bill Shortridge above me, Ed Hall, graphics coordinator. Yep. And you know what? That first year, we were nominated for an Emmy for the graphics. Now, I don't remember, it was 40 years ago, but why only Bob, Bill, and I, believe it or not, they flew us out to LA to the Academy, evening. And man, I was, 22 years old, right out of art school pretty much. And, of course, the memory is a blur, but it was a mystery. Like I said, we didn't win, by the way, but we, as they say, it's an honor just to be nominated. But there's the only photo I have of myself from that era of my life, 1982. So yes, I'm 24 years old. And to those of you who know me, you're all probably going, Arlen, what happened? Yeah, life happened. But yeah, 1982, I was 2 years removed from graduating with a graphic design degree at Rhode Island School of Design. And my first job was at the PBS flagship station in New York City, Channel 13. And I graduated in 1980 from RISD, and I started working 13 that fall. And the following year, after being there a year, I got to design the whole look of their fall 81 campaign. And it's made up of, that's my hand lettering, fall 81, where every minute counts. But I like the mixture of hand lettering with hard typography, typeset type. And these were animated colored squares that would change, very Star Trek computer-like, if you know what I'm referencing, in beat with the music. And, for a kid right out of art school, it was pretty great. I also got to do other graphics for the PBS shows. And again, there's the mixture of my hand-drawn Mario Lanza type with the typeset, the American Caruso. And this is obviously a low-res screen grab of the actual broadcast television show from the early 80s. But you can see my lettering style right away. I remember doing the script with David Letterman below the photo that Marc gave me of the jacket that he had designed for the shot that would become the cover of this book. On the back cover, I'm really proud that I think my single favorite of my own bumper graphic in terms of taking the photograph and doing the lettering. Let's look at that in sharper focus. This might be my favorite. I got to mix, one typeface, the late night on top with the stars, with the kind of shock word balloon down below. And it's always, made me proud that Marc's really given it an honored place in both his exhibit and in the book itself. I mean, I remember that's my lettering. Like I'd be given the photograph of, I think that was Bill Shortridge posing for the guy spray painting on the wall. But of course, they didn't really do it to a wall. I was given the photograph and I had to, this is of course pre-computer, folks. So I had to imitate the look of spray paint by hand. I don't even remember how I got that effect. because did I use airbrush? I don't think I used airbrush, but whatever. And then some of my other graphics are in the book. I remember designing the late night beer can. The word beer comes right out of Mystery in Space and Strange Adventures comic book logos. And yeah, that's a typeface called Mistral, I think, for the With David Letterman and the late night face. And this might be another one of my single favorites, because I grew up with the Good Humor ice cream trucks growing up in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. That's in northern New Jersey in Bergen County. And I remember as a kid being visually attracted to that Eskimo pie in the center. I didn't even know it was called an Eskimo pie when I was a kid, but there was something about that iconic chocolate-covered vanilla ice cream bar. And no wonder I ended up growing up and becoming an artist and a graphic designer. But the chance to do my take on the Good Humor lettering was a real highlight. So from, ice cold to fiery hot, I remember knocking out this one, imitating the Chinese firecrackers, probably bought at Canal Street or something. Another one of my favorites made it into the book, I think. Yeah, I remember doing this one, making the late night lettering look very drippy on the cans. Another one of my favorites, getting to do the late night drum kit with classic kind of 50s-ish fun lettering with the martini glasses and such. I also got to do other graphics for the Letterman show whenever they needed something, like Dave's Video Funhouse. Again, folks, pre-computer, this is all done with, cutout paper, magic markers, coloring photographs with dyes, and all done by hand. Seems so archaic, but hey, my generation straddles the 20th and 21st centuries, analog and digital. But perhaps my single greatest, thing was when I got to illustrate a series called Do's and Don'ts with Frank and Fred. And it was a series of art cards. You can see about 11 by 14 inches that Dave would hold up, and there'd be a blue card pasted on the back with a dialogue that he would recite. And here is the debut image, Do's and Don'ts. Now, what was this based on? Anybody remember Highlights magazine you'd see in the dentist office? I don't know if this is the first issue, but it was the best resolution I could find on the internet. But I remember loving Goofus and Gallant by Gary Cleveland Myers, and these very interesting classic, illustrated style. But it was all about Goofus does the bad thing. Let's go. Mother will clean it up. And Gallant does the good thing. Let's clean up before we leave. Goofus and his playmate are noisy while Mother is taking a nap. But Gallant says, Mother is taking a nap. We must play quietly. Goofus says, let's eat all of them before Tom comes. And this is my favorite line. Let's save some for Lem. Could that be Lemmy from Metallica? Anyway, that's who the writer, I believe it was Andy Ackerman, that wrote these skits. And I did the artwork. And it's like, Goofus and Gallant go out on a date, or whatever this first episode was. And, Goofus presents his date with a single rose. Boy, this is pre-Bachelor. But Gallant gives her a shoe tree. Remember, folks, I just draw them. I don't write them. Frank, did I say Goofus and Gallant? I meant Frank and Fred. Frank pays for his date at the drive-in. But Fred, and of course, look, did I not base Fred on, this is early 80s, folks, post-new wave, post-punk. But, this was my idea of, hoodlum tough guy. Fred, the Gallant of the Goofus of 1982. But yeah, the line went something like, he smuggles his girlfriend in her trunk. I wish I remembered the lines. And you can see behind me in this picture there's more artwork, especially on the left, of, it looks like Frank on the phone with the classic phone separation right out of comic book panels, and the date on the left, on the right with the phone. And you can see how big I worked, and the magic markers on my desk and in my hand. So this is all the artwork I have, folks, that survived all these years. But yeah, so Frank and Fred, this is, I think, a different one where they go out on a date. And, you know, of course, Frank does all the right things. Sure, you know, I'll have her home by 10, you know, whereas, of course, Fred would be, I wish I could remember what the writing was, folks, but you can probably write your own dialogue. But here's another Frank, you know, says goodnight and promises he'll call her again, or who knows what the dialogue was. Whereas, don't ask me why, they all seem to end with a girl in a trunk. Okay, folks, again, I don't write them, I just draw them. Here's the last piece of Frank and Fred art that survives. Frank and Fred go bowling. So yes, when I look at my early artwork, of course, I cringe, but hey, it's not every 24-year-old got his artwork on national television. So World of the Future, I put a lot of work into these things I'm looking back on now. Again, the lettering comes right out of Mystery in Space, Strange Adventures, DC Comics. I should have thrown some images of them in. But I remember this one was written by the comedy team of Tom Gamble on the left and Max Pross on the right. Now, this isn't a photograph from the Letterman days. This looks, you know, significantly later, but suffice it to say, they were writers in the early 80s at the debut of the Letterman show. And these two have gone on to really become modern day comedy legends, really. They're considered that. They worked on key episodes midway through Seinfeld's run, which everybody knows was the heart of the show. And they often made cameo appearances like this one. And then after Seinfeld ends, they go on to become producers of The Simpsons for the last 20 plus years. When I said they were comedy royalty, here they are most recently with, of course, the first guest of David Letterman's show, Bill Murray. And Max Pross attended Mark's opening. There he is right there in the center. So back to the World of the Future. Once again, I don't remember what the lines were that David would say with these things, but I can't even explain what this is. A kid in bed rotating on a gyroscope, the dog's falling off, it's knocking over the lampshade. Again, folks, your guess is as good as mine. But again, send in your best lines, and the best caption winner will win a prize that our announcer Johnny will announce later. Here's another image from World of the Future. Again, I don't write them, I just draw them, but this would probably be banned today for animal cruelty. And then this would be in the World of the Future, you would have these long-range thermometers that could detect the temperature of things in the distance, like your favorite rock star who will still be around in the future. Now, remember, folks, this is 40 years ago, and the Stones just announced the current tour. So again, you know, you can't make this stuff up, folks, but how prescient was this piece? And speaking of musicians, I think the greatest legacy, in addition to, of course, the great bumpers I've been showing you, is the musical talent that Letterman had on his show, both late night and, of course, the late show that followed. You know, the Grateful Dead, and before Jerry Garcia passed away, Stevie Wonder. He would break new talent. Folks, if you've never seen the October 30th, 2007 debut of the New Jersey-based singer Nicole Atkins sing her signature hit, boy, I'm forgetting the title. Doesn't matter. Research on YouTube if it's still up. It used to be up, but try to find this clip. You will see the greatest debut of an unknown singer on national television, I think, ever. But I can't think of any better way than to bring this webinar to a close. Since I opened it up with the very first show, how about the very last show?
There is, I think, really only one person who has not been on this show who I always really, really wanted as a guest.
Really? Who is
one
it?
person in 11 and a half years. And happily, all of that changes here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So, better late than never, please welcome Bruce Springsteen.
For the evening. There we go. Are you ready, man? Well, I had a friend was a big baseball player back in high school. He could throw that speedball by you. Man, you look like a football. Saw me the other night at this roadside bar. I was walking in, he was walking out. Wheeled it back inside, sat down, had a few drinks. All they kept talking about was glory days. Yeah, passing by glory days. In the wake of the young girl's eye, glory days. Glory days. Well, there's a girl that lives up the block. Back in school, she could turn all the boys' heads. Sometimes on a Friday, I'll stop by and have a few drinks with her. After she put her kids to bed, well, her and her husband Bobby, well, they split up must be years gone by now. We just sit around talking about the old times. She says when she feels like crying, she starts laughing. Glory days.
If I had known that, I'd have gotten on the piano years ago. Great to have you here.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much. It's a terrific thrill for me. I really, really can't tell you how much this means to me. Good to see you. Hey, I am Mr. Rock and Roll, aren't I? We'll be right back.
I think it's only fitting that I...
A night for Excedrin PM.
Why can't I turn off this day?
That's what I wanted to advance to, folks. Sorry about that. We'll fix that in editing, as they say. I was going to say, I think it's only fitting that our final image for the webinar tonight be the very bumpers that we came here to celebrate, along with the 40th anniversary of the David Letterman Show, commemorated by Marc Karzen's book, which you could find through his website, lettermanbumpers.com. This will be the homepage that you come to. And as you can see by the menu, home and photographs, that's a drop-down menu. The information down below will tell you how you can get the book by Amazon or by Blurb. Folks, if you go to my website, arlenschumer.com, you'll see one of my pages is about my comic book history project, specifically my book, The Silver Age of Comic Book Art, about comic book art in the 1960s. If you're on Facebook, I run a Facebook group on the Silver Age, as well as one devoted just to Jack Kirby's work and the artist who influenced me the most, Neil Adams. My own illustration style specializes in treating people like comic book heroes, but maintaining their kind of photographic likeness. My site's also linked to my merchandise site, TeePublic, where I'm one of many artists who've got, in this case, over 127 images. I think I have more now. But in every knick-knack, knockoff, geegella, thingamabob you could think of. So support your local freelance artists. And then there's my visual lectures, which is what I called what I used to do live pre-pandemic. And then I was able to translate to webinars with the pandemic shutdown. If you go to my YouTube channel on the left, my Vimeo channel on the right, there's my YouTube channel with my most recent webinars, videos of them. And as you scroll back down in time, you'll see my videos of my live lectures. And then my Vimeo channel usually has all the webinars that were flagged for copyright infringement by YouTube's lawyers using copyrighted music. So Twilight Zone, Bruce Springsteen, James Bond, but Vimeo is lax. So I have a bunch of webinar videos on there as well. So coming up next week, same bat time, same bat channel, meaning 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but not Batman, it'll be Superman. If you've never seen the 1940s Max Fleischer Studios Superman cartoons, 17 8-minute cartoons that are just the greatest realistically animated cartoons ever. So I'll be showing clips from all 17. So bring the popcorn in an easy chair next week at 6 o'clock, also free on Zoom. And coming up later in April and into May, something I've wanted to do for a long time, the greatest heroic male figure paintings ever, Doc Savage by James Bama, 62 paperback covers between 1964 and 72, and highlighting the live model named Steve Holland, who was the greatest male heroic model in paperback cover history. So you can see here how Bama translated. Another one coming up, keeping in the pulp heroes mold of the 20th century, the greatest comic book version of the Shadow, and really the greatest version of the Shadow, I think, in any medium, but we'll talk about that in this webinar. Again, dates haven't been set exactly for these. This is just coming up in the month of April and May. And yes, the Green Hornet TV series, I'll give you an overview on that. Co-starring in the background, blurred, but you know him, you love him. That would be Cato. So folks, if you go to my events blog on my website, I always post all of my comings and goings and the various URL links that you'll need. So thanks for attending this webinar, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Thanks for attending this presentation. Hope you enjoyed it. And please remember to click the subscribe or follow button on your platform screen to be notified of all of my upcoming pop culture presentations. And visit my website, arlenschumer.com, to sign up for my newsletter too. Until next time, I'm Arlen Schumer. Bye-bye.